your cameras now, and the recording has begun. Hana, if you could please start us off with our presentation. But yes, my name is Heperi Mita, and I am a funding advisor for Irirangi Te Motu, New Zealand on Air. And this kaupapa has been set up by Ngā Aho Whakaari on behalf of Te Māngai Pāho and Irirangi Te Motu to help our Māori producers prepare great applications. So right now I'm going to pass over to Kay just to kick us off with some opening remarks, and then we'll jump straight into our presentation. Tēnā koe e Kay.
Kia ora, hepi, kia ora tata mo te karakia. Ai ko Kay Amos tuku ingoa, he ria hau no Ngāti Tamatera me Ngāti Raukawa ki te tonga, ko au te tumu whakarai o Ngā Whakaari. And yeah, I'm not sure if we kicked off the kaupapa or you did, but it's a great kaupapa, and really my role here today is just to try and help facilitate. Obviously, it's more difficult in this context, but what I would suggest and request is if you have questions as we go, it's probably easiest to pop them in the chat, and we'll try and get to those questions as we go through. And anything that we don't manage to get through in our 1 hour we have together, we'll have a record of those pātai and we can come back to you. So yeah, just thanks to Irirangi Te Motu and Te Māngai Pāho for making the time. We're all here to make sure we get more great kaupapa Māori and Te Reo Māori content on our screens. So I think Hepi is kicking off the first section of the kōrero for today. So I'll hand back to you.
Yeah, before we jump into the specifics, can we go on to the next slide, please? In this presentation, we've got a number of kaupapa that we're going to cover, a number of subject headings. However, there may be other kaupapa or questions that you may have. So please feel free to interact with us via the chat. Each one of us is going to speak to a specific area, and then afterwards we could potentially have some Q&A. But I just note that we don't have a whole lot of time, so we'll try and keep things brief and then maybe come back to any questions any individuals may have, or else feel free to reach out to us individually after the hui. Okay, so let's begin. So I'm going to kick off with the before applying, thinking about your kaupapa and how it will become a fundable project. And most of that relies on timing. A lot of people have great applications when you look at them in a vacuum. However, this is a competitive funding process. And when I say this, I'm talking about both Te Māngai Pāho and New Zealand on Air. When an application comes in, we compare it to other applications that are also competing for the same funding in the round. So what may look like a great idea in isolation is difficult to give feedback on because we receive a high volume of submissions, and ultimately what will determine the success or failure of a tono is generally how it compares to other applications in the round. So if we could continue to the next slide, please. All of our rounds and all of our funding calendar is available on our website. This video here is just illustrating how to find this information. We have 3 funding rounds throughout the year. Round Toru just finished. Round Tahi is coming up, I think, on April 30th it opens. Each of these rounds has funding guidelines. So what I'll do very quickly now is kind of walk you through a case study. So last year we had around Tahi 2025, and the guidelines, these are all screenshots here of what the guidelines we're seeking. So we had $9 million allocated for scripted projects and $9 million for nonfiction. For both of those, there was a prioritization on projects intending to access the screen production rebate and projects that brought in international funding or other funding partners, as well as an emphasis on the scale of projects. So this was what was the guidelines for last year's round Tahi 2025. And then if we continue through now to the next slide, these are extracts from the press release after the funding round. What we can see was that we ended up NZ on Air ended up allocating the full $9 million to scripted projects. There were 10 applications submitted. seeking 22 million. So 10 applications seeking 22 million from a $9 million fund. 4 made it through. So 4 out of 10 was the success rate. Of those, 3 of those projects fit that criteria of having that international funding and accessing the rebate, with 1 outlier, right? So as you can already see, projects that fit the criteria strongly have a higher success of making it through. And that's not to say it's impossible to make it through if you don't fit the criteria. It just reduces your chances of having a successful application. Can we go to the next slide, please? In terms of factual, we had 41 applications with 21 applications successful, right? So overall, and thank you, Kelly, for providing me this exact statistics. In NZ on Air, we have a 44% success rate in terms of applications coming into us. I think that's the average in this past year. So if you have gotten to the stage where you're actually applying to us, you have a 44% chance of making it. I wanted to point out in this that in the ground guidelines, we had allocated $9 million. If you see these extracts from the press releases, we actually ended up going over budget. There was $12.6 million allocated for these projects. So what that tells you is that we do have our round guidelines, and there are definitely things that we are seeking out. Those projects have a high chance of being successful, strong applications. However, we can also be flexible at times in regarding what we say, what our intentions are at the beginning of the round and what we end up getting in. Those things are going to have knock-on effects, right? If we oversubscribe in round tahi, that has an impact on round rua and round toru on the amount of funding available. You can see all of our funding results on our website. We are a public funding institution. We need to be transparent in all of the funding that we distribute. On our website, you can go to this section here. We publish all of our results, and you can see in around what we have funded, what the format was, the number of episodes by the number of minutes, and that can kind of give you a rough idea of what to expect in a round, and they're very similar patterns. I mean, one of the things we funded in round tahi last year was, to give you an example, country calendar. That's something that we've funded for the past 50 years. And if you look it up in the funding decisions search, you will find that it comes in July in every year. And from that information, you can kind of see what you're up against in terms of what you'll be competing against and what your application will be compared to. So yeah, timing is everything. All of this is public information. I'm not telling you anything that's commercially sensitive, but if you know if you have an idea of what you're competing against in the funding round, that can kind of give you some guidance in terms of whether the time is right or not for an application. Yeah, and so I think that wraps up my kōrero for this section of the presentation. Are there any questions as of yet, or should we continue on?
Nothing in the chat.
Ka pai. All right. Well,
Thank you.
Ka pai. We'll hand over to India.
Yes, I think India's going to speak to us about platforms. Tēnā koe, India.
Next slide, please. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko India tōku ingoa anō Ngāti Rangi Te Arere no Te Raro anō hoki. I'm going to chat for a little bit about platforms. So generally speaking, every application will require local platform support. This is because local platforms can offer broadcast compliance, commissioning oversight in order for your project to be broadcast compliant, as well as legal compliance. They can help with all of that. But there are certain exceptions. So this could be rangatahi applications. I'll probably get into that one first because there may be some people here who have, it just seemed like something that people were into at our earlier session. So a rangatahi project may not need the support of a traditional local platform, because within our earlier research for Within My Reach, we found that rangatahi spend most of their time on other platforms. They're not necessarily engaging with our linear platforms. But if that is the case, we still need those projects to meet those requirements. So in your application, that may look like having an executive producer on board who can assist with commissioning oversight. And how that may look like in an application is having an EP attached that has experience in the genre that you're creating. In that case as well, we would also want to see what the process is like. So rather than just having an experienced team or an attachment, we would want to see how they're involved in your production process, pre-production or post-production, all that kind of stuff. And on the legal side, perhaps you may engage an entertainment lawyer, and would also be helpful for us to see that process as well. Other projects perhaps could be children's, but then would also need to have a local platform as a secondary attachment, because, yeah, I guess that's not something that's generally out there, sorry. So this could be someone that has an established audience or a returning series or something like that. So that's kind of what I mean by exceptions. All this to say that if you're unsure, it's best to contact us and start a conversation, because I think oftentimes there may be a lot of work put into certain areas, but I think if there's something that's tricky or you're unsure, it's best to engage with us, and we're happy to have any conversation. Another thing that I could probably briefly mention is to do with podcasts. So we have engaged with podcast producers who feel that, because a majority of podcast listens actually occur outside of the traditional platform that is attached. So I think there is a healthy Wānanga out there with podcast producers on what that future could look like in terms of commissioning platforms. But all that to say that that's just an open dialogue rather than we've got a hard and fast rule or something going on. In terms of platform contributions, I think strong co-investment is ideal. Platforms understand what they can offer at this time, and producers will engage with them and will understand what that looks like. But in a competitive funding round, any strong co-investment could be something that gives your project an advantage. And it's also kind of articulating that investment as well. I think in terms of engaging with platforms, there is some commissioner information on the SPADA website, I think, that you can look into. But other than that, I think I can pass on to Whata for his kōrero.
Yes, tēnā koe hoa, ngā mihi tātou katoa. I'll just add to the kōrero in regards to commissioning. Bear in mind that obviously the platforms have their own set criterias and their own set content strategy. So prior to a funding round opening, make sure that you're already engaging with the commissioners and the platforms prior to those. And bear in mind that they have to consider all kaupapa or tono that come to them to make a decision on what they're going to support before it even comes to the funder. Ka pai. So just speaking from my commissioner, Potai, when I was at Whakaata Māori, ensure that you're getting those in at least 2 weeks prior so that they've got enough time to be able to assess those internally, and ensure that you're sending through kaupapa that has been thought through. Minimum, at least a short prop, so that they can actually review, because you'll be surprised with how many emails and tono they get inundated with in terms of them wanting to get platform support. Ka pai. But for now, I'm going to speak more specifically to our Te Māngai Pāho social media platform criteria. All the kōrero that you'll see here is inside our new RFP, so you'll be able to go and review that should you need a refresh. Ka pai. So when it comes to utilizing a social media platform as a primary platform, the main line right here is that we want an established page with an existing and engaged audience. Ka pai. So we know that with a lot of social media content that's coming through, people are wanting to start new pages as part of their distribution plan. What we want is a page that is already established with an existing platform, ka pai, or with an existing audience. You can obviously start a page that will grow alongside your series, but they will be considered as a brand page or a secondary page. When it comes to primary, we need an established page with an engaged audience. Ka pai. So a strong following, maintained and current page, a page that's actually got content that is showing up there. One thing this is going to do is ensure that the algorithm is flowing well. And for us, the main thing is that we want assurances. So it's not just about how many followers you have. We want to ensure that you've got that engagement rate, you've got some good insights to be able to match with your page. Because you can have a page that's got 100,000 followers, but that page may have been left stagnant for a while, the engagement rate is low, it doesn't have any current content that's on there to be able to show, number one, that you know how to manage and distribute content across that page. Number two, to be able to get some good insights, to be able to give us some assurances that this is a good primary platform. And then number three is that we want to know that this platform actually aligns with your kaupapa and the audience that you're trying to reach. Ka pai. We're all for multi-platform collaboration approach when it comes to social media content, but we do need to have clear evidence for that primary platform. Any secondary additional platform, we still encourage those assurances as well. And going back to my main kōrero is we want to make sure that whatever your kaupapa is, identify your audience and ensure that that aligns with the platform where you're wanting to distribute your content. One example that I'll use is in our recent funding round, we had our special projects that focused on matariki and te wiki o te reo Māori. Our matariki content had a specific criteria from our partner that they wanted to reach a diverse range of cultures and minority audiences. Ka pai. So that was very specific in terms of what platform and audience they wanted to be able to reach. Ka pai. So our biggest thing is that read our criteria, really get familiar with the RFP because we do have some specifics in there that we want you to align to. Ka pai. What else? In terms of giving us the assurances for your social media platform, we're wanting to see clear geographic and demographic insights of the platform. Ka pai. So we want to know who and where is your audience based. We know that some pages, it's no use to us if half of your following is overseas in other countries. Okay, we want to have the assurances that you've got the audience, whether it be in Aotearoa, Australia, ki ngā motu whānui. We want to be able to see where that geographic audience is coming from. Demographic, we want to see who is the age, does it align with what you're trying to pitch to us. Ka pai. So we want those insights. They can be screenshots and just back-end reports from your social media pages, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. And then the other assurances that we're wanting is to be able to see at least 3 to 6 months of performance reporting. Okay, so send us your top 3 to 5 posts during that time to be able to show us that, number one, you've got current content that's going up on the page, you know how to distribute and also moderate your page, and we've got those assurances in terms of engagement. So engagement is views, comments, likes, shares, and saves. Ka pai. So send us a good case study, I guess, to be able to validate that this is the page that is right for your kaupapa, and then also a letter of support from that platform as well. So just to say, hey, we are here, we're keen to partner with matariki, heringa waka, and this gives us the assurance that they have full autonomy to be able to post on this page. And then one other thing that we are implementing into our criteria is a level of security, which is partnering with pages who are verified. And the reason for this is because over the last 6 to 12 months, Instagram and Facebook Meta have been doing a clean sweep of pages, and they've been suspending pages left, right, and center. Ka pai, and I can even speak from my own experience. This has happened to me with a few pages. And of recent, I know that one of our key Māori creatives, they've also had their page suspended in the last month or so. And so that's years of created, funded content that has gone. Ka pai. So this gives us a level of assurance and security that with Meta, so should this happen through any of your Meta sites, Instagram and Facebook, that you have that level of safety. Just like our local platforms, they've got their IT specialists, their security walls available for their apps and their digital platforms. We want this assurance for our social media platforms. And this is in the best interest for you and us, for you, so that you know that your taonga, your content that you've put all your hard mahi into is safe. And then for us to know that it is also safe, that our funding has gone, is safe in terms of the content and the distribution and the platforms that it's on. Ka pai, so koiranga kōrero mōku.
Kia ora, Pata. Thank you. We do have a related question in the chat, which we'll get to. So I just first wanted to acknowledge, thank you. Te Māngai Pāho do have different criteria, right? But I think probably a lot of this social media information would relate to projects on NZ On Air, funded through NZ On Air as well. Both for the ones, the case studies where you can have socials only, which as India pointed out, a special case, kind of exceptions to having a commissioning platform separately. But also a lot may also have socials as a secondary platform as well. So a lot of these analytics, the question was, do we need to provide all of this info if we are looking at pitching our show to have social media channels as the primary platform of distribution? Now, I don't want to jump in, but I'm thinking that for NZ On Air would also be interested, or either funder would also be interested in any of those analytics, even if the social media platforms were secondary, because it all speaks to how much audience you're getting and how much interaction. Is that right from your point of view, Fata? Regardless of whether the social media platforms are your primary or your secondary, this is useful information?
Yeah, definitely. And for us, just giving us as much information and as much assurances as possible for us to be able to see that you've taken all these things into consideration, and basically just validating that, these are the right platforms for your kaupapa.
Did NZ On Air have any other comments around what sort of data you like regarding any social media platform distribution?
Yeah, I think it also relates to your target audience as well. So if you specifically know that your content is engaging with a certain audience and you're able to prove that on an established social media channel, then that would be extremely helpful, that information for us to have, even in terms of marketing as well. So where that information is going. That marketing material. Yeah.
Which is a great segue into, I think Gabrielle's going to speak to us next, diving a bit deeper into knowing your audience and how that relates. Obviously, all of these things are interconnected, your audience and knowing you've got the right platform for your audiences. But Gabrielle, you were going to talk to us a bit more about that.
Yeah, there's one more question there in the chat. I don't know if you want to go to that.
Just come up.
First.
Sorry, it's come up while I was trying to navigate. Okay, Fata, the verification of Insta accounts. Can you give us an idea of what kind of things lead to those suspensions? Sounds like a question for
Yes. So Meta, Instagram, Facebook have loads of commercial rules around what you can and can't obviously put out on there. So that is a big factor, using commercial music. And sometimes, like for myself personally, I've had 3 pages that have been taken down this year. And they just didn't give any information at all about why. And I know this has happened to a lot of people this past year. Having the verification, what I do want to say is pages have also been taken down that have also been verified. But what the verification does is gives you more assurances to be able to go and fight to get that content back and have a direct comms with a Meta assistant that will help you go through that process. For anybody that's not verified, that's not even there. So basically, it's just giving you a level of connection and communication and security in line to be able to get a direct line in with Meta, essentially, just to ensure that you've got somebody to build a case who will actually support you through that. And that's all dependent on the type of verification that you're paying for as well.
Cool. I just also want to jump in here just to quickly say that this kind of thing would come under our legal compliance stuff if you're wanting to create a piece of rangatahi content for social media, and just sort of reiterating that we only fund for social media for rangatahi projects.
Yes, it also speaks to the ongoing issue of the vulnerabilities that we have with big tech controlling all these distribution channels. So, data sovereignty, getting our own things up, but always, of course, everyone's got everything backed up elsewhere and all of those things. But yeah, it's an ongoing challenge regarding the flow of information. I think that's it for the chat for now. So, Gabriel.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Yeah, my name's Gabrielle. I'm in the funding team up here in Tāmaki Makaurau. We wanted to have a quick talk included here about knowing your audience and knowing your project, because even though this seems like kind of the most obvious thing in the world, and that you all think that you know your project and you know your audience, it is something that sometimes doesn't come through clearly enough in applications that we're getting, about who the audience is and how the content and the platform and the team all are aligned with that audience. So we really want you all to be really clear in your applications to us who you think your audience is, and that may be whether that's a general audience, whether that's a Māori audience or a rangatahi audience, or whatever particular audience your content is for. The knowing your audience all goes to what your content is going to be and what the format is going to be and how that's aligned with that content. For example, a lot of people come in saying that they're creating rangatahi content, but it's longer pieces, or it's on linear, or the content just doesn't seem quite right, or the team are not rangatahi, they're an older creative team, and it doesn't kind of sit right with us, and we think, is this really a rangatahi project, or are people saying that because they want it to be a rangatahi project? So being really clear in your applications about who you think your audience is and how that has informed your choices about the format that you're taking, about the content choices kind of editorially that you're making, and also how your audience, your target audience, has led to the platform that you're on and how that aligns with that platform. For example, making content that is got a Māori target audience might be more appropriate to be on Whakaari Māori, or if it's not, then explaining that. Also, your team, are you the right team to tell a story? By which we mean, as I say, if you're creating rangatahi content, do you have younger creatives on your team? Or if you're doing a strongly wahine Māori story, do you have wahine Māori on your creative team? And then if you don't think that you strongly have the team that aligns like that, how do you bring on other creatives or bring on other consultants which help bolster your ability to tell that story? Does anyone have any questions about that before we move on?
There's nothing showing up in the chat yet, but if it comes up later, we can circle back because we are rocketing through
I'm
the
conscious
time.
of
Yeah, I
time.
know.
So
Thank you. We're aware.
Yeah.
We're aware. So, but just a reminder to everybody that the teams at both Te Māngai Pāho and Irirangi Te Motu are always here to answer your questions at any time. So, because what we were going to swing to next was a very, very brief look at Rautaki Reo Māori. And I'm taking this opportunity to promo that we're actually we've put out a save the date already in the Whakaari Pānui. If you haven't seen it yet, save the date, 30th of April, where we've got Stacey Morrison leading a full day deep dive into Rautaki Reo Māori. So really the section that Steph's going to talk to us about now is kind of like a taster, a little teaser reel of what we can get into more deeply at the next Wānanga. But I'm going to hand over, please, to you, Steph.
Ka pai, tēnā koutou, ko Steph Fong, taku ingoa ko hau tetahi o ngā kaihāpai I Te Māngai Pāho nei. I'm one of the content advisors in the Te Māngai Pāho team, and Te Reo Māori is my passion, so I'm very happy to be speaking about what a great Rautaki Reo might look like. So a few points there on the slide for you to follow along with. The first point really is that the Rautaki Reo that stand out for Te Māngai Pāho are those that are very specific to the project that is being proposed. So rather than provide perhaps a list of high-level goals or values, there's actually detail about what we're going to see and how it's going to happen in the particular project being proposed. So really encourage kaitono to do the same for every one of their tono. That's about it on that point, really. The second is probably the key part of this part of the presentation, is that when you are creating your Rautaki Reo for each of your projects, you want to be thinking about providing assurances throughout. So in particular, yes, we'd like to see assurances that whatever reo percentage that you have proposed for your kaupapa, it's not that you're just going to meet it, it's that it will be met with ease. And so the entire proposal, you want to be thinking about how you can be providing those assurances to your assessment panel. The third point there on our slide, including a really clear quality assurance process, that's really, really important. And it's not necessarily something that's always seen. So if your Rautaki Reo has a quality assurance section, number one, and then it's actually really clear and applies to all uses of Te Reo Māori throughout your project, that's really going to strengthen your tono. And so when we talk about all uses of Te Reo Māori there, we're talking about everything that we see and everything that we hear. And so, of course, what you're going to be able to do to assure quality for each of those instances of Te Reo Māori will vary, depending on your kaupapa, depending on the type of talent you have, depending on whether it's scripted or unscripted. But that is an idea that you want to have at the forefront of your minds, and you want your assessment panel to see that that is the case. A few things that you could do to really give clarity would be to really clearly outline the role and the responsibilities of your Pautiaki Reo Māori. It's not enough to just have an amazing Pautiaki Reo named and then leave your panel guessing as to what it is they're actually going to be responsible for. So you want to make it very clear what they're going to do, when they're going to be involved, how they're going to be involved. Ideally, they're involved from the beginning right through to delivery. We would like to get clarity on how exactly we're going to see and hear Te Reo Māori. So let us know, let your assessment panel know, are you going to have subtitles? Are you going to have voiceover? Are you going to have PTCs? Are there going to be graphics? So make sure that you're covering off every way that Te Reo Māori is going to feature throughout your content, and then back that up with an outline of the processes that you as a production company in conjunction with your Pautiaki Reo have put in place for each of those instances of Te Reo Māori. And you want to outline as well who's responsible for what. And the idea is that by providing these sorts of pieces of information, you're going to be giving assurances to your panel that, yes, we've got Te Reo at the forefront of our minds. yes, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that it's as high a quality as possible. Koe ra noi hope te poto o te wānei. Happy to take questions. Otherwise, passing it on to, I'm not too sure who's next in the lineup.
Deb, thank you. There's nothing specifically coming up there now, but I guess I'd just add that although obviously Steph's speaking from the Te Māngai Pāho point of view, NZ On Air are also responsible for the promotion of Māori language and culture, so there will be proposals also going to NZ On Air that have significant, we hope, Te Reo Māori content, and I think a lot of those same approaches to the Rautaki Reo would translate across into what you're presenting to New Zealand On Air as well. And I think I'm having to segue myself. I think we're going to talk about marketing and publicity next. We are. But again, I'll use this little time for a little interstitial promo. 30th of April, whānau. Come and learn more about Rautaki Reo from the Masters. India, are you picking us up?
Cool. I am. I'll just chat through a few helpful tips in terms of marketing plans and marketing budgets. I think in terms of specificity, it's articulating in your proposal, and I suppose within the budget as well, exactly what you're going to do to promote your piece of content. So this includes asset creation, paid media, maybe PR or publicity, or some proposals may have some sort of community engagement. I think if you have any unique approach or something that's not typical, ensure that it's well explained, or even just have a chat with us first. Or we also have our budget expectations document as well that I think Gabriel will introduce you to, and there's some helpful do's and don'ts in there. I think it's definitely ensuring that the budget reflects what you've proposed and breaking that down. And it's also, if your plan has additional marketing or promo channels, it's kind of articulating why this is best for your project and how this will reach that audience. I don't think I'll get into discoverability, but also I just think that I don't want to say upper perhaps, but not to over-rely on what the platform is up to, or not to over-rely on organic reach, I think. So making sure that the plan is clear and well supported in the budget. And then your plan may be a bit more meatier, for example, if you're doing something without the support of a platform. I think another helpful thing as well is engaging your platform to see to what level they will promote your content and understanding how that is going to work once it's time to be released. But yeah, those are just a few things I wanted to mention about marketing, if anyone has any part-time.
Thanks, India. We don't have any specifically about that, but yeah, that's really useful information, and being aware of being able to identify from your platform, if you do have a traditional commissioning platform, what they're going to do, and put a monetary value on that at times too is useful. And always talking about the money, Gabriel's going to talk a bit further about budgets, please.
Yeah, so thinking about budgets, it is something that we get asked about a lot. And one really common question that we get asked that we can't really answer, which is not super helpful, is how big. A lot of people just say, how big should our budget be? How much money should we request? And that isn't a question that we can easily answer, because unhelpfully our answer to that is that the budget should be appropriate for the project. And that doesn't always even just mean how long is it, and that you should request a certain amount per minute or whatever. But, some projects are just more expensive than other projects. And if they need to be, then they should be. We don't want to see people just making their budget as small as they possibly can and doing things as cheaply as they possibly can, thinking that that will make them more likely to be funded. And working in with that, what is the most important thing for us when we're looking at a budget is that the budget is aligned with the goals and aims that are in the proposal. So you send us a proposal, laying out all the amazing things that you want to do with your project, and then you also send us a budget, and we look at those two things together. We don't look at them in isolation from each other. So what we want to see is a budget that's strongly aligned with the promise from the proposal. So if you've got things in your proposal where you say that we're going to do this travel and we're going to, be on planes, trains, and automobiles, doing all sorts of things, and then that's not budgeted for, that's a red flag for us. And similarly, if we see lines in your budget that we aren't really clear on what they are because it wasn't referenced in the proposal, that's also a red flag. So just a reminder, I guess, that those two things should be working in conjunction with each other, and the budget should reflect the reality of the proposal. And that comes down even to the people who are involved in your project. We often see people listed in a proposal, like these are going to be our directors and this is our talent and these are our producers and everything, and it doesn't exactly align with the budget lines that are in the budget. And of course this makes us wonder whether those people are really there or how much they're getting paid or whatever. So make sure that whatever's in your proposal is reflected in your budget, and there aren't surprises in either place that are not reflected in the other. The other really strong piece of advice for putting in a budget for us is to make it more detailed. I don't think we've ever had a budget come in that we thought was too detailed, but we have had lots and lots of budgets come in that are not detailed enough. And so don't put in there, we're going to spend $10,000 on camera crews. Put in there how many people, how many cameras, how many days, what their daily rate is going to be, and then a total amount, so that we can see the detail that's in there. Like that gives us information about your shooting schedule and how long it's going to be, gives us information that you're paying people properly. So include as much detail as you can in your budget. There is, as India said, and I've written it down here, there is on our website a document which is called Production Budget Expectations. If you go to the website and just put budget expectations into the search, that will come up, and it is super helpful in terms of what to include and what not to include in your budget. It explains about above the line and below the line. There's a link that Hannah has helpfully just put in the chat if you want to jump on that. And I would recommend that anyone who hasn't read it has a look at it, because even if you have a lot of experience putting budgets together, there's always good information in there. It goes into what we expect to see in terms of PCO and contingency, also platform contributions, and also how you treat your non-cash contributions, because we really want to see people properly valuing the non-cash contributions that they put in there, which is to say not undervaluing them but not overvaluing them as well, just so that we know that we're getting a true reflection of what your budget really is. We really don't have time to get into talking about NZ Spur projects, projects accessing the rebate, but I would say that if you are intending to bring in a rebate project application, that you potentially talk to us beforehand, and that you definitely are talking to the Film Commission as well about the rebate. Has anyone got any budget questions before we go on?
There haven't been any budget questions come up in the prop, but in the chat. So that all sounds like great advice, and I think particularly that not expecting your funders to be mind readers about your budget and being able to. They shouldn't have to join the dots. You've got to join those dots for your funders between your creative proposition and your budget. Having read hundreds of proposals myself, the mental labour of trying to connect those dots is not going to make your funder your friend if they're having to do all of that mental labour to try and make sense of it. So, thank you. I think we're going to talk about what, for most on the call, probably think is more fun stuff now, which is some creative things from Hepuri's going to talk to us a bit more about what the expectations are, mainly in the scripted space.
Oh, Pai. Yeah, I mean, some of these principles will apply across the board, and I'm just very conscious of our time. So I will make this quick just in case we have any pātai. But in terms of if you are making a scripted application to us, first and foremost, have some scripts available. In my time here at Irirangi Te Motu, I've never seen a successful scripted application that didn't already have some draft scripts attached. I think one of the biggest questions that we ask is this project production ready? And what that means is not only is it creatively ready in terms of having a draft script for episodes 1 and 2, does it have script outlines for the rest of the series? Is the series arc defined from episode 1 through to episode 6 or episode 8, or however long the series might go? And production readiness also applies to what Gabriel touched on, is does its budget align with the ambitions of the series? If there are stunts, is there a stunt coordinator in the budget? If there are intimacy scenes, does it afford an intimacy coordinator? Similarly with te reo, is there an on-set te reo advisor? What scaffolding is there from a administrative standpoint, from a producer's standpoint, in terms of ensuring that that role has oversight across the board? So this alignment of budget and proposal and script is something that we're very big on, and that's actually what makes a great proposal. If any of those elements are not aligned, that automatically raises questions. And I think one massive tip to leave on would be that if there are known weaknesses in terms of your application, lean into them and speak to them in the application. Because if we're left guessing about what those things are, we either assume that you're trying to hide it or you don't know. But if you are aware that you're trying to make a complex production with like a 3-week schedule, walk us through how you plan on doing that, and that type of thing. The budget often betrays the shortcomings of the proposal or of the planning of the production. It gives us just as much information as the script might. It gives us just as much information as the proposal might. And so these are all things that, if these documents are all lock and step, that is actually what makes a great proposal. And I don't want to speak on behalf of Te Māngai Pāho, but I'm sure that the Te Reo Māori strategy would also be part of that equation. So look, I am going to probably leave it there because I want to leave some time for any pātai from any of our guests, our manuhiri on this call, or if there's any other remarks that any of my colleagues would like to make at this time. Kia koutou.
Okay, we'll buy some time so that there's still some time for people to put some questions in if they like. I might just do a little bit of a wrap up of my big takeouts from both this session and this morning. So there was a great in-person session this morning as well, and that speaks to the fact that all of the members of the funding teams of both organisations are here and do want to speak to you about your proposals. And please get in touch because everyone wants the same things. So some of the key things for me were to understand the landscape, know what the rounds are, understand the guidelines, meet the guidelines. I liked the way I think it was Steph put it this morning in her session. It's like, when you're sitting an exam, you need to answer the question of the exam question. It's a bit similar. Really helpful to be familiar with and examine past funding results. Sort of gives you a temperature test on what's getting funded, at what sort of budget levels. If you do have a commissioning platform, with which Friends on Air particularly most will, they are your partner in helping you to develop your proposal, and hopefully they will help you spot any gaps in your creative proposition and your budget. So lean on your commissioners to help you to get the best possible proposal across the line. Have a clear distribution path to your audiences is super important, whether that's on what might be established platforms or might be a more social media focused distribution plan. You need to have that very clear distribution path and explain and justify that to your funders because, they are responsible for our taxpayer funds. And so they've ultimately got to do due diligence and know they're investing it wisely. TMP and NZNR have different mandates and policies, so while a lot of these things will cross both, also be really clear about who you are seeking funding from and what their particular priorities are. With the Rautaki Reo, I guess a summary from Steph for me was those need to include both what the Te Reo Māori content on the project is going to be, and also very importantly, how you're going to actually deliver that in terms of quantity and quality. Don't expect the funder to read your mind, make things clear, and most importantly, again, is engage with your funders early, get in touch, all the details are there. They're all really cool people who want to help you get your projects across the line. And yes, it's disappointing when people get declines, and I'd say we've probably all had them, and it's hard because there's not enough money to go around, and we accept that. But our kaupapa from Ngā Aho Whakaari had put a tono out to the funders to run this. It's obviously because we want to see more Māori projects get a bigger slice of these pies. So I think if there's, oh look, we've managed to make up some time. Was there anything that Te Māngai Pāho wanted to come back in with that you haven't had a chance to address yet? Jump in now. No. And we're not all in the same room because that was technically beyond us today.
There is a partai that's just come up regarding the funding rounds.
That's probably for you, Nadia, or someone else from your team. The Māngai Pāho have a hui a pōpō. Kura round. Is that what it's called? Oh, the Ke Kura Pounamu. But when will future, okay, so when will future rounds be published? Apparently that's going to happen tomorrow, which is at 11?
11:30.
Okay. So Nicole, I guess, either jump on tomorrow, or are you recording tomorrow's session for those that can't make tomorrow's?
Yep, we'll be recording that.
So future rounds will be available then. Any other partai from everyone on the call? No, we're going to get you out of here in a nice timely fashion then. So just he mihi nui ki ngā kai kōrero katoa o tēnei hui. Keep the questions coming, ask your questions directly, ask early, like as soon as you know you're thinking to come to a round, come in early and ask those partai, because the longer that you've got to shape things up is good. And I see we've got some commissioning team on the call too. We love our commissioners as well, and they are your friend, and they will work with you to, if you get a commissioner's support, they will work with you hard to try and get your project through at the funding end, but also acknowledging that commissioning platforms sometimes have slightly different priorities than funders, and independent producers are the kaitaha Wānanga, trying to pull those things together. So I think that's us. Thank you everybody who joined us, and I will throw back to Whata. Hei, whakakapi i tō tātou hui.
Tēnā koe, tēnā o te rā, tēnā tātou katoa i hui mai, e mihi ana ki ngā kōrero i Wānanga hia i tēnei rangi, nō reira e mihi ana ki a tātou katoa i tēnei rā. Unuhia ki te uru tapunu kia wātea kia māma te tinana, te wairua te ngākau ki te arataka tū, e rongo whakairia ke ki runga, tūturu o whiti whakamaua kia tīna. Huie, tai ki. Tēnā tātou, kia pai te ahi ahi.
Ake te.